no fault divorce. You guys can get divorced whenever you want,
Okay.
except when you do it, one of you is going to be penalized.
Okay.
You're going to have to pay alimony to the other.
Okay.
Right?
That is a structure that exists within the government, yes. Because the
Right.
government offers you more freedom than religion does. In some ways, Republicans can and will make the world look like it did in the past. If J.D. Vance is in charge, I think he will cancel gay marriage. And lots of gay people will go back in the closet to hide because they're scared of a society that doesn't accept them. There will be fewer trans people in public because the society won't accept them. And that won't make them disappear. They'll fade away from daily life, but they won't disappear. They won't be gone. They'll just be hiding underground.
Hello human, it is me Kanuch. I need you to press the subscribe button. I have to feed my many AI babies.
The same would go for...
I mean, I can't, like, this is all just speculation. Like, what do you want me to say here? Because
I don't know. I'm ranting.
I don't know how to respond to that. Like,
okay. Do you think that'll happen? Gay marriage is going to go away.
Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. Can you repeat the question?
Will gay marriage go away if a Republican wins?
No.
Do they want it to go away?
No, nobody.
Yes, they do.
Nobody cares about that anymore.
Yes, they do. They talk about getting rid of it.
Who?
They talk Republican Christian types at their conventions talk about getting rid of it. The thought leaders who show up on these stages talk about getting rid of it, overturning Obergefell or whatever the hell it was called. They want it gone. They want to get rid of it. They definitely don't like trans people, right? They definitely do not want trans people out in public. The Republican thought leaders want these people to stop doing what they're doing, and if you are doing it, they keep it inside your house where nobody can see it, no one knows it exists.
Well, if you want the conservative Christian stance on marriage in the first place, which, you know, my dad is a hardcore conservative, and a Christian, it's not that they want to get rid of gay marriage.
Okay.
The idea behind, or in the conservative Christian circles, at least that I've heard from, and grew up around and whatnot, is that marriage is not even supposed to be the purview of the state. Marriage is a religious institution in the first place. So the idea would be to stop giving benefits for married people, like in terms of like the tax code and whatnot, and don't recognize these partnerships in the first place under state law or under federal law.
Okay. So all the benefits would go away? There would be no more
as in like
taxes filed jointly thing?
So like why is it that I as a single person am being taxed at a higher rate than a couple that are married? That's silly.
I agree.
And the idea behind the conservative Christian stance is it's a Christian institution in the first place, or a religious institution in the first place, and the government, we have separation of church and state. The government should not have a part in that and should not be incentivizing it.
Okay.
Or disincentivizing it.
Okay. I would be, I guess, okay with that.
Here's the thing.
Okay, so I just say that it's not a religious thing at the moment. But you would have to to overturn all of society. Okay. No, I'm absolutely against this. Now, hang on. 1,000 years ago, marriage was about property rights, not religion. It was about property rights. It was about whose daughter gets it was about cementing relationships and politics, and who owns the cattle and who owns the kids. That's what it was about. It has never been a religious ceremony.
They were pretty highly religious back then, and it has been a religious ceremony. That's why it happens in churches.
But the ceremony is only ceremonial. The power, the reason, the products, the money changing hands, the property changing hands has always been about the state, not the state that existed, feudal states and whatnot. It was never about religion. It never has been.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, it's always been a religious institution.
I think that's the religious people lying to you, tricking you by making themselves sound more important than they actually are. It was always about cattle and who and selling and buying and cementing things. The kings all do it. We all watch Game of Thrones. It's about cementing those two families together. You need the greens and the blacks to get along with each other, so you give them one of your daughters to marry them, and then that's their family, and then that's their kids, and then that was the game the Martells were playing, right? I mean, you remember the Martells? They were playing that game. Get sexy people all over the place.
The daughters were treated as property too.
Right, and they were given to all of the other fancy families, and then when they had kids, you would be less likely to attack that group of people because your nephew is over there. You know, you liked your nephew, so you're less likely to kill them all. That was the Martell's plan. Become so ubiquitous between there that no one would want to attack you.
I mean,
that's not about religion. Never has been. I don't think it's ever been about
You're talking
religion.
about like the super rich and the super powerful people making family relationships and whatnot. That's not the same. I mean,
that's what
it is the same thing. It's marriage.
Would do it. Two farmers would do it. Two farmers in Ohio in 1872 would do the same thing. Hey, I got a farm. You got a farm. We both got these kids. Let's get them together and put the whole farm together. And then our kids can run both sides. That's not religious. I don't think it ever has been. I don't think it's ever been religious.
If you say so. I think it is.
I'll look into the history of it, and I'm willing to bet that when you go back and look at the history, this is all off the top of my head, just arguing about history that I may or may not have remembered correctly, that it's always been about property and the owning of the children. As soon as we got away from tribalism and we got into the feudalism, you need to know who your kids are. In a tribal society, you don't care who your kids are. Why does it matter? They all fucked each other and they all slept in a pile, and it was gross and it was sticky. But once you get into agricultural and stuff like that, I need to know who to leave my land to. That goes to the firstborn son. Well, we have to know who your wife is, and we have to know who your firstborn son is. And if she's running around with everybody in the tribe, it doesn't work. So you need to know who your children are. You need to know who gets these things, who inherits this stuff. And that's state stuff, not religious.
Well, I mean, that's mating strategy stuff, isn't it?
Well, that's sure.
No,
that's not mating strategy. No, that's state stuff. That's who I give my stuff to when I die. That's state. Who gets your stuff when you die it's called estate planning. It's got the word state right there in it.
I mean, I'll take Button's word for it that the Bible is explicit about inheritance.
Well, it probably is, yeah, but not for religious reasons, for cultural reasons, for societal reasons. The Bible is to set up a society. It's a societal control. Societal control. That's what it is.
Societal control. No, it's guidelines for establishing a.
Snide Amanda, thank you for turning the frog gay. I appreciate it.
It's guidelines for how we don't turn the frickin' frogs gay. You know what I mean?
It's guidelines for a society. I agree with that. What's that got to do with Holy Ghosts? Fucking nothing.
A lot of religion has to do with that, actually.
No, that's the paint on the walls, man. The Holy Ghost is the paint on the walls. The Bible is to set a society with rules,
that's what I'm saying.
Guidelines.
What did you think I was saying?
Okay, sorry. I got excited. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so that is what the Bible is for, is like, or any religion really, is to set guidelines for society.
Okay.
The religions are an accumulation of wisdom, I would say. Some of it is not necessarily needed anymore. For example, why is it that under certain religions you cannot eat pigs? You can't eat pork.
2,000 years ago, they were filled with parasites and would kill
exactly
you.
Because back in the day, before we knew how to cook the pork, if you ate the pork, you died, right? Mm-hmm. So the religion said, "Hey, don't do that." How do you teach people to do something or not to do something that you can't, like, they can't experience for themselves, or if they do, it's extremely harmful to them, right? That's what religion is for.
I agree with you. That's what it's for. That sounds like a state to me. That sounds more state to me than spirit, doesn't it? Telling people how to, that accumulated wisdom of what keeps you alive, what keeps you dead, who to give your stuff to when you die, that's a state, not a spirit. The spiritual stuff is painted on to make people like it a little bit better. It's the energy, it's the excitement, but it's not the purpose. It's the paint on the scaffold.
Not really, because without giving people a personal incentive to do something, they won't. Like, if we know, for example, that certain behaviors are good for society, but those behaviors are, like, for example, hey, don't go and steal things. Well, it benefits me to go steal something, right?
Right.
But, and you know, I totally could get away with it, right? But it does harm society to do that.
I agree.
And guess what? If you do that, well, when you die, you know, the Almighty God is going to send you to hell, where you'll burn for eternity, right?
So
now you have a personal incentive not to do this.
So we've got a structure here. We've got scaffolding. We've got walls built up. Don't steal. It's bad for society. But to convince people of that, we had to paint it with spiritualism. It's paint. The structure is structure about how to set up the state. Don't steal because it's bad for society. And the spiritualism is the paint. But the paint is more interesting to most people. I agree. That doesn't surprise me. I'm not arguing that you are incorrect with anything you're saying there. It's just that I'm looking at it from a different perspective. The paint is what convinces most people, not the structure.
Well, so
the structure is a lovely side effect. The structure is the point of the people who write the thing and put the thing out. The paint is how you get the people in the door.
I would agree with that one. Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
And I could make the argument that religion or the lack thereof is responsible for a lot of the ills we're seeing today in society. Like, for example, our greater than 50% divorce rates and the single parenthood that exists right now for children.
You think that's due to religion, or is it due to a lack of religion, or
a lack of religion?
A lack of the paint, or a lack of the structure?
It's a lack of both. The problem the problem with this analogy is that the structure is necessary. In order to get people within the structure, you need the paint, right?
Well, that's how you get people to accept the idea. Okay, I'm on board. They accept the paint. They look the paint. They're like, hey, this is great. I love it. I'm so glad that this paint is holding everything up. But it's not. It's the structure that's holding everything up.
And without it, nobody goes in. And then so if you tell them, hey, you have to go in there or our society collapses, they're going to look at it and say, well, that's an ugly building. I'm not going to do that.
I think you and I have structural disagreements, not paint disagreements. I think you are talking about the single mothers and the what was the other thing you mentioned a minute ago, the divorce rates. I don't think those are harmful. You're telling me that's a bad structure, and I'm telling you, no, it's fine. Who cares?
I'm telling you, it's an awful structure. Yes, I am.
No, I don't
absolutely.
Care.
Are you kidding?
It's not harmful to us in any way.
Outcomes for children, it's not just single mothers, single fathers too. Outcomes for children in a single-parent home are notably worse, measurably worse in every metric than children raised in dual-parent homes.
I think that's due to poverty and the lack of resources, not because they have two people. And if two people is better, why isn't 3 or 4 or 5 even better?
These are structural
situations. Okay,
and in fact, they used back in the day before I was alive, or before either of us was alive. The grandparents also used to live in the home, and they used to also raise the grandchildren.
Okay, and that's
you're right.
Structural issue.
2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people.
Okay,
yes, having more people to raise the children is better. Yes, within the home. And you have to have a family for that. And children do better in situations where they have family support. And the more family support, the better.
I can agree with that. I really can.
All right.
I can agree that will make you slightly better. But you can't force that on people. You can't legislate that into being. But you think you can paint it into being? Too. With the spirituality? You think with the spirituality you can paint that into being?
Well, I'm making the argument that religion does serve a purpose, and I also have made the argument that the state should not be involved with religious processes. So we disagree on whether marriage is a religious institution or not, but I think it is, and I don't think that I should be penalized for not being married in the terms of what benefits I do or do not receive.
Okay, and 1 sec, I'll get back to it. I Can't Buttons, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for subscribing. It makes a big difference to this little stream, so thank you very much. Public policy and economics was the most impactful class I ever went to. Okay, interesting, John. Thanks. So I think that those are two different structures. That's all. The state is a structure without the spirituality painted onto it, and the church is a structure with spirituality painted on. That's all it is. It's just a different structure. That's the important part to me. That's your first sub ever. I appreciate that, Buttons. Thank you very much.
That is a big honor.
That's super nice, yeah. Do you see how I'm saying they're both structures?
They are, but there is a correct structure and a incorrect structure as well.
Sure, there can be mistakes within the structure, things like that. I can accept that. Hey, maybe the state built a thing and it was incorrect, and we had to unbuild it and rebuild it somewhere else. There's plenty of incorrect structure, I think, within the church. They push all kinds of things that I think are anti-freedom, anti-human. Why would they do that? To say, no, you can't gay marriage. There are very, very, very few churches that are like totally on board with the gay marriage. Why? Because they think that's bad for their structure. And because they think it's bad for their structure, they paint it with the spirituality to say that it is a sin and that you will be punished, just like the thief who steals. The thief is harming the structure, and they think that the gays are harming the structure. And so they paint it with the spiritualist brush that says you will burn in hell if you steal, and you will burn in hell if you sleep with a dude.
Okay, and it could very well be that they're wrong about the gays, and
okay.
I'm willing to accept that. That's fine. But I mean,
so
that's why the same religion, as in Christianity, that in the past didn't allow you to eat pork, now does.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, some of them do. I mean, it depends on who you're asking. The Jews and the Muslims still don't.
Well, yeah, they still don't, but Christians do, right? And
Christians do, usually, yeah.
You know, the stuff about not eating pork is still in the Old Testament, right?
I know.
But Christians eat pork anyway.
Because we've built a better structure.
The guide, yeah.
And then
guidance has changed.
And then we stopped paying attention to the old paint. The paint, the structure was, don't eat the pork for a reason, it will kill you. The paint was, it's a sin. We have progressed beyond that idea into new structures, better structures, more up-to-date structures where we figured out how to cook it, we figured out how to farm it, and it's fine to eat it. So we changed the paint, and it's new structure. Where was I going with this? What was I thinking about?
We got off
marriage.
on a tangent.
I know.
Yeah.
Marriage has never just been the paint. It has been a structure. I agree with you. Would you agree with that statement? I think that's what you said earlier. Marriage is part of the structure.
Yeah.
And the ceremony is the paint. Yeah?
Sure.
Showing up in the suit with the white dress and the black tie, and all your friends are standing around, and then you're throwing the bouquet, all that's paint. I agree. I think so. Because you can do marriage without the paint. You can go to the justice of the peace, marry somebody, sign the forms, and you'll be done in a day. And no one has to be there, no one has to witness it, and all that stuff. That's structure without paint.
I mean,
that's how I got to this. That's how I get to this end point.
It's not a matter of structure. What you're advocating for is not a structure. It's an enforcement of a structure, right? Like the signing of the names on the paper, and then assigning, like, if you guys get divorced, then one of you has to pay alimony, and
mm-hmm.
you know, there's John Kay referred to child support and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. That's all structure.
That's
right?
all legal stuff that involves enforcement of a structure.
It's part of the structure. How is that not structure?
Right.
It very much seems like structure to me.
Well, so the problem with the legal structure versus the religious structure, and so it is that the legal structure is enforcing things that don't exist within the religious structure, right?
Okay.
So what I'm saying is the religious structure does not afford for divorce, right?
The religious structure doesn't accept it. Okay, gotcha.
Right.
They have said this is an unacceptable thing.
They're saying
that
divorce is a bad thing. We don't do divorce. It doesn't happen.
It's bad for the society we're trying to build. It
bad for the society, right?
Okay, great.
The legal structure says no fault divorce. You guys can get divorced whenever you want, except when you do it, one of you is going to be penalized.
Okay.
You're going to have to pay alimony to the other.
Okay.
Right?
That is a structure that exists within the government, yes. Because the government offers you more freedom than religion does. That's the point I'm getting to.
Wouldn't the freedom
to
be able to be married and divorced without the use of government at all? Why would you enforce this institution?
It is a part of the government. It's part of the structure as it stands. You can live with somebody and never get married for 20, 30 years. The common law rules I don't know if they apply. Sometimes they do. If you live with the same person for 6 years, it's called common law marriage or something like that. I don't know about all that. But if you just lived with a girlfriend for 10 years, then you guys broke up, you don't have to pay all the money, right?
You do if you live in the same place.
If you live in the same place?
Under same place as under common law, yeah.
I mean, if you would have to go to a court for that, wouldn't you?
She could absolutely sue you for alimony.
Sue in a court, right. But if you don't, if she doesn't sue, what happens? Nothing.
Nothing.
Great. Okay, so there's freedom there to go and do what you want. I agree. I accept that. Does the church support that?
The church doesn't support fornicating, which is
exactly,
which is to live
they don't support
with
that.
Someone of the opposite sex in the first place.
So the church limits freedom in almost all cases. That's why I don't like it.
That
they have considered
are better for society.
Are better for their structure. They limit that freedom, and that's why I don't like them.
I mean, at some point, there's a structure that's correct, and there's one that's not.
No.
And overwhelming ultimate freedom, yes.
Nonsense.
I'm sorry,
we're getting back into.
There is something to be said for structure.
Structure is acceptable, but saying that one is correct and will be the most correct. Now we're getting into that objective morality thing again. There is no correct structure. There's structures that work, and there's structures that fall, and there's changes over time, and there's updated structures. It is always subjective, that structure. If you don't think it's working properly, then try and convince people to use it differently, or rebuild it, or change certain things, or abandon certain things, or use your freedom to say, I don't think that's good for me, so I'm not going to go do it.
Well, there it is. It's our politics.
And now we're back into politics. Exactly. Shinsedo is saying the structure is correct because I believe it is. I think that's a dangerous sentence. I think this structure is correct because I believe it is. I don't like beliefs. I think they're a bad idea. Freedom
is correct because I believe it. I mean, can we look at metrics and see the outcomes of different structures? Like, for example, can we look at the outcomes for children raised in single-parent homes versus dual-parent homes?
And those numbers can support you. And they probably do.
Oh, they absolutely do.
That doesn't make it correct. It means it could be beneficial. That's maybe it's the absolute language of one structure is correct. Maybe it's the same issue that you and I always have is objective. And I don't think there's anything. There's almost nothing that is objective. There is almost nothing that is correct. There's almost nothing that is absolute.
I mean, that is the nature of fact-finding, right?
To get closer to the truth, sure. But you'll never find it. You'll never be completely correct about everything. There is no 100% perfect. There is no perfect. You can strive to be more perfect, but you can't be perfect. There is no such thing.
Okay, so my overall point for this whole part of the conversation was that religion does have a place in terms of it is the accumulated wisdom over time that provided a structure to where, hey, these are the things that work for society, and these are the things that don't.
I can agree with that assessment. I can agree with the way you're describing it there. I think you are correct. Well, shit, now I can't. Now I said correct. I think you are doing a good job describing it. But I think the government is the exact same thing.
Pressing the thumbs up button will release chemicals in your human brain that will make you feel.
I am now, I never had this thought before until a couple of minutes ago, but I think they are just, the religion and the government are just simply two different government structures, two different structures, and they are competing. They are competitive, they're two competitive societies. And I think the government offers me more freedom, and it offers more people more freedom. That's why I support it over the church, because freedom is the basis for which I begin my politics. It is the underlying core, it is the underlying bedrock that you really can't get below in my hierarchy of political importance is human freedom.
Yeah, I don't find that to be the highest thing in the hierarchy of importance.
Right, and that's why we keep disagreeing. That is why it's fun to talk to you. That's why I think we have something going on here with the chat and all the things there, because we have different base ideas.
So I am interested in some of these comments.
Yeah.
So John K., I read earlier, his parents got married religiously, but not under the state, and then his mom had to raise him on his own with no recourse. That's unfortunate. I would say that under the current structure, your mom probably did have recourse to sue your dad for child support if he wasn't around. And yes, two-parent households do perform better. They don't do better. The reason why they don't do better from an economic standpoint, or the reason religion isn't the reason why two-parent households do better from an economic standpoint. I mean, it just makes sense though, right? If you have two parents, you have more face time with the kids. You have more income in some cases. How is a two-parent household? Maybe I'm not reading this right. Religion isn't the reason why two-parent households do better from it. Okay, no. So religion isn't the reason two-parent households do better, but religion just says, hey, two-parent households are better. So you should do that.
They have looked at the evidence and they have suggested that it is the best way to go, and it is more beneficial to you and to the people involved and to the structure, and they are pushing it as the right thing to do. I think you're right. That is what they're doing. Does that...
Okay.
And that is fine to push positives. I think that's fine. But when you start harming negatives, like, or you start preventing people from making choices, it bothers me all of a sudden. It gets me. I'm like, wait, you can't choose that? Okay, well, I don't like that. I immediately irk at the idea that, no, you can't get divorced. Well, that's a loss of freedom, and I don't like that. You aren't allowed to marry a dude. Okay, well, wait a minute. That's a loss of freedom. I don't like that either. And the losses of freedom, yes, the government does that sometimes, but I think the church does it more, which is why I generally don't like them, and I generally don't think that. And we're not even talking about the paint the spiritual paint they spread all over everything, that I think is absolute nonsense, made up fiction. But the idea of their structure, I'm not okay with. The fact that they're painting it with fictional paint, I'm not okay with. And so when people push the ideas, or J.D. Vance stands in front of a bunch of Christians and tells them the things that they think and the things that they hold dear are important and valuable, and he's going to push them within the government, it makes me nervous. It makes me not want to vote for him. It makes me think that he is dangerous.
So I do think that the principle of having freedom as the absolute foundation for everything is I'd say misguided, incorrect, damaging.
Okay.
I mean, there are a number of there's a lot of research. There's a number of books that are published on the subject. But we've read The Fate of Empires together, actually.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. There's if you've ever read Sex and Culture by J.D. Unwin.
I don't think so. But if it's
any number
evolutionary biology, I ain't gonna do it.
It's
those
not
guys are all
evolutionary
insane.
biology.
Okay.
So Sex and Culture is sort of a look into the policies around marriage between different societies throughout history, and how productive overall that they were in terms of like their achievements in science and conquest and all the different fields that we might measure production in.
I've
and it
never
turns
read
out
it.
the ones that are more free get less shit done.
Probably, yes. That wouldn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. The people with more freedom get less shit done. Yeah.
So
I'm accepting that.
What is our goal here? Is are we trying to actually like maintain a society that gets things done?
No.
Or are we looking to
human freedom? That's my goal.
Okay, sure.
Yes, that's the base. What should my base be? If you had a base, what would your base be? Would your base be something other than human freedom? And if you need to think about it, that's fine. We can bring it back to a question later. But that is the question that I would ask you: is where's the base? Where's the bedrock?
The bedrock. Definitely not human freedom.
Okay.
What gets us the best outcomes for the most people?
So, what prosperity? Would that be the bedrock?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, I'm thinking about what word could describe the thing that you're describing, and I'm thinking prosperity might be it.
That sounds perfect.
Okay.
Prosperity would be...
John K., that's what we're talking about. These core concepts are so important and have huge implications. Right. My core concept, my base, is human freedom. Thomas, yours would be prosperity, because that's more important to you. That people be prosperous. We continue, we produce, we make things, we make the world a better place for the humans that are involved in the world, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the idea. And unrestricted human freedom can end up with being contrary to what makes things better for everybody.
Of course it can. That's why I don't push unrestricted freedom. I say
but freedom is your foundation.
Freedom is the foundation, yes. And then building upon that that foundation of freedom, what harms other people's freedoms? When you steal, like we discussed earlier, that thief that's harm that nobody likes. Nobody likes that. And there's no fucking society alive that is like, yeah, it's cool. Take what you want. Nobody has this structure like that. That person is harming other people's freedoms. When someone stole something from me, I no longer have access to it. It's not mine anymore. And the thing that I worked for, the thing that I built, the thing that I put together is gone. My rights, my freedom is harmed. If you murder someone,
you would restrict the other person's freedom to take that thing from you.
Yes.
Wouldn't you? Yes.
Restrict the people from doing it. So I'm not unrestricted freedom. I'm saying the restriction is built because you're harming people's freedoms. But would you build the restriction because it harms prosperity?
Well, yeah, because prosperity is generally, like the nature of the word itself, is what's best for everybody, right? We prosper, we live long, and we prosper, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The freedom as a foundation. I feel like it's a foundation made of sand.
Which one? The freedom?
Yeah, freedom. Okay. As a foundation, I feel like it's made of sand.
It is difficult. I agree.
If you build things on freedom and hold it as your highest principle, there's no point to which you can reasonably stop and say that you can't do something unless it impacts the freedom of somebody else. And even then,
and that's an easy way. I think I can do that all day. I can.
Well, no, you can't.
Of course, I can. Give me a scenario, and we'll determine whether or not it harms someone else's freedom. It's not that hard.
Oh, sure. All right. So there's a married couple. This is, I guess, relevant to what we're talking about. There's a married couple, and they get divorced.
Okay. They have the freedom to do so. I'm on board.
If the woman wants a divorce, she gets alimony from the man, and if the man wants a divorce, the woman gets alimony from the man. Which one is free to make the decision to have the divorce?
They were free to get married.
Which one's more
They were free to choose the divorce, which I think is fine. The state deciding one of you gets paid and the other one doesn't generally is a leftover from the misogynist government we used to have, the misogynist world we came from, that we got better from. And if we move forward into the future and women make just as much as men all the time, and there's no more worry about the wife being a homemaker and doesn't have any skills and cannot function, because that's why alimony existed. Because women couldn't get jobs. In the 70s, women couldn't even have their own fucking bank account. How are they going to live on their own? How are they going to use that freedom to divorce this person if they can't have a bank account and they can't be single and they cannot exist? Alimony is a vestige, a leftover from when we were worse. And if we want to be a better society and we make things better, I'm all right with getting rid of alimony. I really am. If it is, if it's not serving a purpose anymore, get rid of it.
Fair enough. So what would you do with the institution of marriage in terms of the government? Should be like, if you're not going to have divorce rules, right? If like when you get divorced, here's like you have to pay this person so much. Do you think that it's reasonable to eliminate the marriage thing from government overall?
No, because it's only a state situation. It's only a state thing. Kid, what's the word? Not when you own them. What's that thing? Fuck. The mom gets the kids. What do we call that? There's a fucking word for it. Determining who takes the kids, who gets the house, who gets the car that you bought together. That still needs to be decided by law and by rules. If you were married for 10 years and you have 2 kids, custody. Fucking, that's the word I was looking for. Couldn't find that word in my head anywhere. She said, got it right. Good job. Custody needs to be discussed, and it needs to be figured out, and it needs to be set in law of who gets custody when, and the judge needs to make that determination, and that's fine with me. That isn't a lack of freedom. That is the government. You had the freedom to choose to separate. Now we have to determine what to do with the assets. You have one car and two of you. Who gets it? Who paid for it? Did one of you make a shitload more money while the other one stayed home to take care of the children? Well, that looks bad on a fucking resume. We live in a capitalist society. Not that I'm happy about that, but it does look bad on your society, on your resume if you haven't had a job in 4 years. It doesn't look good. It's very difficult to get that stuff off the ground, which means you will need some sort of assistance. I'd rather the person that you're separating from give you that assistance rather than the state, but I'm okay with the state giving you some as well. But from the other direction, the religious side wouldn't allow you to even do the divorce. So you do not have that freedom. You do not have that choice. That is a choice taken from you. That is a choice taken from you even in non-religious by Republicans. They would talk about ending the no-fault divorce. That is a freedom that they would take away from you. I'm a big
fan of ending no-fault divorce, yeah.
That is a freedom that you would take from people. I don't know why you would do that. That sounds like a bad thing. Taking choices away from people, taking freedom away from people, preventing them from making choices that they want to
preventing them from making choices that would harm
society?
Right? Reduce prosperity. It's
right.
It's a matter
reduce
of
your prosperity, which is why you're not against it. And that's why. Okay. See, now we've gotten to the core. I don't think prosperity is the most important thing. I think I guess the crux of this entire argument. You think it hurts their prosperity, and I think it hurts their freedom.
Does enhanced prosperity not also bring greater amounts of freedom in general? Like, for example, without prosperity, you would never have an air conditioner in your home. You needed prosperous society to develop that, right?
I'm not saying
air conditioners
useless.
Allow us to live in more humid or hotter climates, right? They or any number of technologies that exist are the result of prosperity, not human freedom.
I don't argue that. I'm just saying it's like not as important as human freedom.
Is a more apt example.
Okay, and if it took 1,000 slaves to have invented that refrigerator, I don't accept it. You could, if Elon Musk came out right now with his crazy, he's a crazy person who eats a lot of ketamine. If he came out and said, "Listen, I can solve fucking global warming. All I need is like 1,000 people to be completely enslaved for like 10 fucking years," I wouldn't accept it.
I think that's obviously
but it's very prosperous. It's prosperous, but it's gigantic prosper. We would all prosper from such a thing. We would all prosper, but we don't accept it, and I don't think you would accept it either.
Well, no, because
freedom is important.
Acceptance, no, because the acceptance of slavery as a something that we can do in society, it reduces prosperity overall.
It reduces freedom too, right? Those people aren't free; they're slaves, right? So I'm not trying to connect you to slavery. I'm not. What I'm suggesting is freedom is important, is the most important to me. You're suggesting prosperity is the most important to you. I'm not saying prosperity is garbage, dog shit that needs to be thrown away. No, it's a thing that is important, but not as important as human freedom. That's all I'm getting at.
There's probably a balance to be struck, right?
Right. I agree with that too. We need to balance these things out. We need to have politics. We need to argue how much is too much freedom and how much is not enough prosperity, you know?
Yeah. I guess depending on what your starting point is, though, if you use freedom as your foundation rather than prosperity, you end up with chaos.
Only if you handle it badly. Anarchy is what you're talking about. And I'm not an anarchist. I've never suggested that we should be. That is a concern, sure. Too much freedom is anarchy, is chaos. Yes, I agree. Which is why I don't want it unrestrained. I want it restrained based on, are you harming someone's freedom? And to me, two dudes getting married doesn't harm anybody's freedom. And I don't think you would say so either, which is why you're on board with it, right? Or is this a prosperity thing?
Yeah, no, two dudes getting married, I don't care about that.
Does it harm prosperity? No?
No.
Does it harm freedom?
I don't think it does.
No. So we both, that's why we agree on this, because the thing that's one situation you and I completely agree on, because it does not harm prosperity for you and it does not harm freedom for me. I never thought about it from that angle before.
So maybe we can bring it to something that will be more controversial about then.
Sure.
So Buttons brings up why get rid of no-fault divorce, which I said I was a big fan of, and I am. And the reason is because if you get rid of no-fault divorce, people would be more discerning about who they get married to in the first place. And additionally, they will give a lot more consideration to whether or not they actually want the divorce. Now, if people have kids in a divorce or kids in a marriage, right? Getting rid of no-fault divorce, like, I'm sorry, but it just is a fact that children raised in two-parent households have better outcomes. So allowing a no-fault divorce.
If the parents want to be there, if they hate each other and the law and the church won't allow them to separate, they would be miserable. They would be hateful.
Pressing the thumbs up button will release chemicals in your human brain that will make you feel.
Hates each other? I mean, are they...
Yes. They're willing to go to a lawyer.
So.
They're willing to go talk to a lawyer to get out of this house with this person. And if you force them to stick together,
the willingness is so little, though. It's not even a...
Divorce is a giant fucking ordeal. It's not like
it's so easy to go to a lawyer and be like, hey, I want to get divorced.
Lawyers are expensive. They cost a lot of money. You have to separate all your friends. You have to tell your entire family, here's what I'm doing. You have to go to court cases about custody of children. You have to decide who owns the car. You have to decide who owns the house. It's a fucking life-changing ordeal. And nobody's doing it flippantly.
Sure it is.
I don't accept I don't accept that. Nobody's doing it flippantly.
But it is someone's fault.
The women have to change their name back and forth. This is not something that's happened flippantly. This is something that requires a ton of dedication. It requires dedication to get married, and it requires just as much dedication to get divorced. Living comfortably, and I'm gonna dial it back here. If you're just in a rut and you're not super in love with them, you probably won't even go through the divorce. You'll just carry on, muddle through for a very long time. Anybody who's getting divorced wants to be away from that person, and it requires dedication to do so.
Yeah, I don't agree. I think it's too easy to get divorced right now, and I think that way too easy.
Easy. Calling a lawyer, going through all the paperwork, changing your name, losing your friends, picking your friends. Honestly, I knew a guy who I used to play board games with him and his wife, and I played D&D with both of them, and then she started doing one of the guys in the D&D group, and the whole thing had to break up, and I had to choose, who am I going to talk to, who am I going to be friends with? And
she started doing that. Guess what? It's somebody's fault, and guess what? It's hers.
That's a false divorce. Great.
Yes,
it
should be.
He got a divorce.
Here's the problem with no-fault divorce
is that ahead of time,
divorces that are fault divorces are being treated as no-fault divorces in almost every single case.
Oh, wait. Hang on.
That's the problem with no-fault divorce, is most divorces are somebody's fault.
I don't care for fault. I don't give a shit. It's one of those shitty words that I don't like. But because everybody can find a fault in something. Everybody can find a fault. Oh, well, the situation I'm talking about with these three people playing D&D, her husband didn't respect her and didn't treat her right. And so she ran off to some other guy who was nice to her once. Is that his fault? Is it his fault for ignoring her? Is it his fault for being at work all the time? Is it her fault for doing somebody else? Where does the fault lie?
Let the court decide.
The fault can be pointed anywhere. Blame is real easy to fucking throw around. Faults are easy to find. Faults are easy to point out. Simple. Anybody can do it. Most of my stream is just pointing at Republican faults. Honestly, I'm not even lying. I don't think I'm surprising anybody by saying that. I point at Donald Trump's faults. I do it all the time. It's easy. It is of no value. Surprise. Sorry. Buttons, I know you subscribed to me for the first time, but I'm just pointing at faults, and I have very little value. It's very easy to do. Is the point I'm getting to. I don't care about fault. I don't think there's any value in determining whose fault this breakup was.
I think there is.
If she, and I don't think there's any value in it. Buttons is feeling cheated. I know. It's too late. So let's change up this scenario just slightly. The guy was ignoring her. He didn't pay much attention to her. He spent too much time at work, too much time on board games, didn't like her. She didn't like him all that much anymore. And let's say that she had just said, I would like to divorce you. No fault on her part. You would say that she's not allowed to do that. She doesn't want to be with him anymore.
So maybe you could have a scenario where before anyone was at fault, there is a chance for a divorce to happen without admitting fault. Okay, that's what you're suggesting?
Yeah, no fault.
All right. So
these people didn't have any kids at the time.
No kids, and she just says we need to separate.
Yeah.
Right.
This isn't working out the way I wanted it to. They'd only been married for like 2 years or something like that. She came from a small town, and he came in there, said nice things to her. So they were very nice. They were very loving. They liked each other for the time. He married her. He moved her to a bigger town. She doesn't like the way that the things are going. She doesn't want to be with him anymore. She found somebody else she likes, and she says to him, "Hey, listen, I would like to be with somebody else." Like, I think this is all freedom. She had the freedom to enter into the marriage to begin with. She had the freedom to. He had the freedom to pursue her. She had the freedom to accept it. She had the freedom to get married. They got married. They moved to a new place. She accepted it. That was fine. This is all just freedom. And then when she says, "I don't want to be here anymore," I think she has the freedom to say so.
Okay. So if I were the supreme dictator of America, what I would be willing to agree to would be within the first 5 years of your marriage, as long as there are no kids involved, no fault divorce is allowed.
That is a compromise, and I appreciate compromise. I still think it takes away freedom.
I can see your argument, right?
I mean, after 5 years, I still think there's a loss of freedom there. But a compromise is okay if there's no kids involved.
I definitely can see the argument. The problem is that marriage is something that should be taken very seriously.
Except that it's not, because people are dumb and they have
it's not because
that make them do dumb things.
It's not treated seriously.
Well, because I don't think it's a serious situation.
Well, at least at the moment, it is. It is supposed to be a very serious situation. Like,
I agree.
Marriage is like here. I think we're getting to the crux of our disagreement on marriage itself. Then, marriage itself, right now, in my opinion, is being treated very frivolously.
Right.
Just people do it in fucking Vegas for fun.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. It should not be treated so frivolously. We should not have institutions that allow it to be treated so frivolously. It's a serious thing.
I agree with you that if you're taking it seriously, it should be a serious thing, and it is an important thing, and it is a legal thing. I would suggest that people would not be more, under the way you described it, people would be more discerning. I don't think they would. Absolutely not. No, they wouldn't. Because, and I'm going to slightly change the subject here, but the people who push for no-fault divorce are generally Christian right-wing, right?
Yes, because Christian doesn't.
What else do they push
Christianity
for?
doesn't Christianity doesn't
anti-abortion.
Hold on.
They push for all kinds of bad things.
Christianity doesn't afford for divorce in the first place at all.
Okay. So this is a package deal. This is a foot in the door that they're using.
And by the way, I am not a Christian.
I know you're not.
I was playing devil's advocate earlier for the viewers.
Yeah.
Just so that you guys know that I'm not contradicting myself.
Right, and I do throw those things at you sometimes, and I appreciate you doing the devil's advocate thing. Thomas is not a Christian; he doesn't prescribe to those things, and sometimes I throw that shit at him because he's the conservative in this situation right now.
I'm a Christian.
I'm a Christian.
Thanks, KVP.
Yes, good job. So yes. The people who are pushing no-fault divorce generally are the hard right Christian types. They also push for no abortion and no birth control, if you really go far enough. That doesn't make people more discerning. It locks them. It removes their freedom. It removes the choices that they have, forcing them into marriage, forcing them to stay in that marriage, and forcing them into what the Christians have decided is the most prosperous structure for themselves. And that is a lack of freedom that I cannot abide.
Your suggestion is that a decision...
I don't even call it a decision. Fucking
Hold on.
Hormones are running. You're not decisions. Teenagers are fucking psychopaths because they can't make decisions properly. Hormones break your brain. They make you less intelligent, not more. We need to recognize that about humanity and accept it. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry.
Your suggestion is that a decision is not affected by whether or not consequences exist as a result of that decision.
I don't think it's a decision, and I don't think we're even talking about consequences yet.
Well, no. The consequences are something that is supposed to be a direct output of your decision, right? So when you think about what you're doing,
only in a prosperity
and then
mindset,
you think about,
not in a freedom one.
Hold on. When you think about when it comes time to do what you do, right?
Sure.
And then you go do it. There are a lot of things that factor in for a person before they go do it. For example,
sure. If they're thinking, humans have you've never made bad decisions based on hormones? I have. It's a dumb idea. Lots of people.
Oh, come on. Somebody gives you a needle and it has heroin in it.
I'm not talking about needle and heroin.
Make the decision. Hold on.
Babies.
Do you make the decision to put it in you or not?
If you're addicted, you're not making a decision. No.
But the first time.
The first time you can be peer pressured into it. You can think that it's a good thing. You can want to be experimenting. That's a decision, sure. And
okay, so knowing
in your brain can affect
knowing
your
how badly that one shot could fuck you up for life.
You're knowing how. We're not talking about drugs. We're talking about marriage.
We're talking about decisions.
And screw. Decisions are. Humans are notoriously bad at making decisions. Always have been. Always will be. And instead of forcing them to live with the consequences, you give them options to make better decisions and mitigating ways to mitigate the damage. That increases freedom. Mitigating the damage increases the freedom. It really does.
The problem is that they're not separated concepts. The problem is that as much as I would love to give everybody the ability to separate themselves from the consequences of their actions, the fact is that they took those actions in the first place, and those actions themselves are bad for society because the consequences can't be separated, no matter how much we try.
I accept that sometimes you cannot be separated from the consequences. I agree. Sometimes you can't avoid the consequences. But if you can mitigate the damage, if you can mitigate the damage to society, you can mitigate the damage to yourself, why would you be against it? That's what no-fault divorce is. It's a mitigation. No-fault divorce is a mitigation to the bad decision you made.
And if it didn't exist, you might have considered the consequences beforehand.
No. People are bad at making decisions. People don't use foresight. They never have, they never will. And instead of trying to create a society that has really looks forward toward the decisions they make, I'm going to suggest let's recognize that people make bad decisions and mitigate the damage afterward. People don't get addicted to drugs, and we'll take it to drugs because Buttons is bringing it that way, because they think it's a good idea. They generally have some sort of escapism. I don't want to talk about drugs. Sorry. But let's stick to marriage. You have hormones controlling your brain. Teenagers are psychopaths. They barely have any control of themselves. They really just do not have functioning brains, but they do have functioning genitalia, and they can knock each other up. I think it's acceptable to mitigate the damage that they have caused each other, rather than forcing them to get married at 16 and stay together for the next 70 years.
We agree that teenagers don't make great decisions.
You think
we're talking about
the consequences?
Right now,
well, no, I'm talking about all of humanity. I don't see the difference between a 16-year-old being hormonal and a 24-year-old being hormonal and making a bad decision. It's the same hormones, the same people, same humans. And they don't.
I do.
Have
their brains
to
are
have
way more developed.
Right.
And also,
I think it would happen
when they're
often.
16. Their parents are still supposed to be in control, except for the fact that we don't have a whole lot of households that are dual parent. They don't have that much oversight over the kids anymore. That's kind of a problem. Oh man.
I'm gonna blame that back on capitalism, but that's not what we're talking about right now. Okay, so the kids are uncontrollable because of the stupid chemicals in their fucking brains. That's human. You're not going to change that. There's no telling them the consequences that's going to talk them out of this. Kids are notoriously bad at making decisions, even if they know the decision will cause consequences later down the line. They think that they can that it won't happen, or they can dodge it, or that it's just not that important, or it won't happen to them. Teenagers are bad at this, and in a hard right Christian conservative nationalist world that I think J.D. Vance will bring us, that 16-year-old couple has to get married, has to carry the baby, and has to stay married for the next 70 years until they die. And it limits their freedom. I don't accept that. I don't like that. I don't want the idea of their lives being controlled by this that consequence for 70 years.
Well, we're not talking about J.D. Vance. We're talking about
Republicans and consequences.
I don't even know if most Republicans. I'm arguing with you on the basis of my own ideas.
All right.
So
I
don't want to hear about
talking about
J.D. Vance.
Okay, great. Should that 16-year-old be allowed to, one, not get married? Do they have to get married? Does the law say they have to get married?
It does not.
Okay. Does the law allow the 16-year-old girl to get an abortion?
It does.
Oh, okay, great. That's freedom. So they don't have to get married. Freedom. She's allowed to get that abortion. Freedom. They are allowed to then not spend the next 70 years married to each other, even if they don't like each other after 30 or 40.
I think you've erected a straw man.
Freedom. No, this is a thing that happens. Oh, okay.
Okay. I never suggested that if a woman gets pregnant, that a marriage is required as a result. That's ridiculous. When did I ever make that suggestion?
Okay, I'm taking the the people who want to outlaw no fault marriage. I'm taking their positions and trying to make sense of them. Give me your position on the 16-year-old couple, the sophomores in high school. They got left alone because all four of their parents had 2 jobs each, 8 jobs among them, and got left alone and then accidentally got pregnant. What do we do with them? Does the law have anything to say about them, or are they free to choose their own?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, the absence of the second parent in a lot of cases is a problem there. It increases the number of these cases that we have.
I wouldn't argue that.
Okay. So just by having more 2-parent households, you reduce the problem that we're talking about right now.
Okay. And you're going to get to that point. You're going to get to that point by removing people's freedom. I don't think that will accomplish the thing that you think it's going to accomplish. It's going to make hateful, angry, bitter parents. That won't make the better children. The stat you're looking at is happy people who like each other and raise their kids properly.
What?
Forcing
no, I'm not.
people, yeah, of course it is. The 2-parent household, how many of those are hateful towards each other? How many of those households, the 2-parent households that you're talking about, fucking bicker and scream and hate each other and are not allowed to separate by law?
None. Do you think there were households that bickered and screamed and hated each other before no-fault divorce was introduced?
Yes.
Okay. And what were the...
They produced my grandparents.
What were the divorce
rates
awful back then?
They didn't have divorce rates. It caused my grandfather to literally shoot himself in the head because he hated his wife.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, okay. It was my grandmother's first husband, not my grandfather. I take it back. We call him... It's a complicated thing. It's my grandma's first husband. He hated his wife. He shot himself in the head. Later, she had a second husband who became my grandpa. Sorry. I didn't mean to tell the story that way. Regardless, we all know that about her. She had a first husband who hated her so much and he couldn't divorce her and he didn't want to divorce her, so he killed himself. Now, this is the thing that you will be introducing children into. That kind of relationship with no fault divorce. Shunned for divorce back then, right? So death did them part.
That is what marriage is supposed to be.
That sounds like a lack of freedom, and I don't accept it. It keeps coming back to the same point that because of a lack of freedom, he couldn't get out of it. Because of a lack of freedom, the children that would have been in that relationship would have not been happy. They would not have done better. They would be, I think, the same statistic as if you had one parent. The 2-parent statistic that you keep pushing and keep suggesting, and I think you are correct. You are right. But that's because the people are happy and get along. That statistic will not hold if you're forcing people to be married. And that is why I'm against you and your position. That's why I'm arguing this position with you, is I don't think that stat will hold. I think that stat will go back to...
I'm talking about an overall trend, though, right?
I think that trend won't hold.
So if the decision to get married is taken more seriously, you will have less relationships or less marriages that result in people who want to blow their brains out because they hate their partner.
Right. I agree with you. I think you're correct in that statement. But I don't think that the law preventing people from getting the no-fault divorces is the way to make that happen. I don't think the Christian right wants that. Who has a plan to make that happen? And there you go again, bringing about the whole politics thing. I don't think your suggestion to make no-fault divorce go away will make that happen. It won't.
The situations will still occur in some cases, yes. I just think that that situation, in return for not having as many children raised in single-parent homes, is a good trade.
Okay. That sounds like a good place to call it off today. I'm going to give you that last word. I always like giving you that thing since I'm in charge of all the buttons, you know. That is, yeah, it's about 12:30, so we're coming up at the end. Is anything else to add to that? But I think you got the essence of it right there.
That's pretty much it. Although self-harm is not the only way out.
Yeah, I don't think that's what you were suggesting. I don't think that is the direction I think you were taking it. But when I discuss your position there, that's what worries me, is that those, I said I'd give you the last word, so I will, sorry, that it will lead to unhappy people living an unhappy life and not taking it out on the children, but the children will know. If you're unhappy, your kids know it. If you're in an angry, hateful, mean marriage, your children know it. And in our current society, those people break up. They get divorced.
Well, yeah, but then you have the question is like, is it better for your kids to know that the mom and dad don't like each other, or is it better for the kid to be in a single-parent household where they end up going back and forth between mom and dad's house, and they still know that the mom and dad don't like each other, but, I mean...
It's equal. It's the same. Doesn't matter. If you're brought up in an angry, hateful, forced to be in a marriage house, then you'll be exactly the same as the kid who's bouncing from one house to the other and having 2 Christmases. It's exactly the same. That's why I think your stat won't bear out. That is why I think that stat won't hold. There's nobody accidentally getting divorced from somebody they like. It's not like, oh no, everything, we were so great. We loved each other so much and we just accidentally had a divorce. That's not how that works. It's the people who are bad for each other, the people who aren't getting along, the people who are mad at each other, the people who can't fight all the time, the people who don't want to be near each other. They're the ones getting the divorce. And because your stat, I suggest, is built on people who still like each other, yes, that is much better for the children. I agree. That stat exists, and it's filled with people who are happy.
All right. Parting comment.
Yes, please.
To KBP. The drug rant... I thought the route that I took when I want to derail the topic is car break-ins in San Francisco.
Right. Thomas wants to derail the topic. He talks about cars getting broken into in San Fran, not drugs. Drugs is an acceptable tangent. And with that...
How dare you besmirch my name like this?
And with that... we will call it off for today. I appreciate everybody who came in. I got a couple of new follows on the YouTube, and I got a couple of new follows on the thing today, and a sub. Buttons has become a sub, so I super appreciate that. That's very nice. I thank you very much. I don't have that many subs, but I'm kind of new to the Twitch thing, so I just got all the cool new Twitch icons and stuff like that. And I think, yeah, see? I got these little... emoted, little animated ones. I'm very excited, and I'm gonna get some new lights. I'm gonna do something every week or something like that to make the stream slightly better, and that's the plan anyway. Thanks for being here, Thomas. I appreciate it. Thanks for playing along when I needed you to play along. Thanks for arguing when you felt like it. Did you have fun today?
Oh, I always have fun on these streams.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that I'm not badgering you and browbeating you and yelling at you and making you feel bad. Thanks for everybody who was in chat today. I will be back on Monday.
Only when you make me defend JD Vance.
Okay, I'll try to make you stop defending JD Vance. I will point out his flaws, and then we will point them out together. I'll be back on Monday night, 7 o'clock PST, West Coast, Best Coast, for the time for Monday on the normal stream. I'll do... We'll read the headlines, and if I run out of headlines, we'll play some video games. And that'll be it. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and I will see you on
everybody.
Monday. Goodbye.
I am the algorithm. Click on this video to make me happy. You wouldn't like me when I am angry.